Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good evening. Welcome back. After a short hiatus, we are about to do 2 episodes here on the Bad Batch review show. I am Catherine, and joining me tonight is, as usual, my co-pilot Maui Jones.
Oh
Are you
hi.
there? Oh, hi there.
Oh,
It's been so long. Oh,
oh hi, Kat.
oh, hi Maui. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to talk about one of these episodes.
Where is the lie?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness. Yeah. So for those of you who don't follow us, if you don't, you should. But we took a bit of a hiatus last week, so we are talking 2 episodes in 1 hour. And
It's
so I
episodes
would
12 and 13, right?
yes, entitled Rescue on Ryloth and what was the other one? Infested. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I take notes on I took notes on like 2 different pages of a Word document. So I'm like, I gotta scroll down to see the other stuff. And it's actually really funny to compare these two because episode 12, I mean, my notes barely fit on 1 page. And for Infested, it's like maybe 2/3 of a page.
Mm-hmm.
And most of it is just like my questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a feeling that'll be like 40 minutes of Rescue on Ryloth and about 20 minutes of Infested,
Yeah.
if that. So let's get started, shall we?
Agreed.
This is basically like a part 2 of our Ryloth arc of Bad Batch. Actually, and come to think of it, it's our first like actual like multi-episode arc that we've had in Bad Batch a la Clone Wars, which was, I actually really like that. What do you think about that, Maui?
I liked it a lot. I love multi-episode arcs. Makes me happy. So yeah, I was very happy to see a two-parter. And they didn't really say whether it was going to be a two-parter, but like I was convinced. I was like, oh, it was just definitely gonna be a two-parter. I wasn't like shocked at all. I was
Sure.
like, oh, I mean, they didn't finish the story. Obviously, they're gonna go and save her. So yeah, I loved the multi-part.
For sure. Yeah, we definitely knew that there was going to be some sort of extraction mission going on, and that is exactly what happened. But this episode, because it was part 2, because Bad Batch does not have that convention that Clone Wars did of like when last we had, like we don't have the guy doing the recap every time. So there was actually a bit. This episode kind of, I don't want to say wasted, but it spent a good couple minutes at the very beginning, like recentering us at, as to where the story left off. Because, we pick up, the first scene is Admiral Rampart visiting Chem and Eleni Syndulla in jail, and they go over the attempted assassination, on Senator Ta, and Hera's gone, and Hauser looking kind of conflicted, and, Hera, another scene with Hera being on the run, and, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as I have, like, again, all these notes, like in the first couple minutes, not a lot happens. It's just like, here's where we left off,
Yeah, it really felt like the episode just kept going from the previous week. It didn't feel like, oh, now we're in a new episode. It just felt like, and continuing on,
Yeah.
So I really think when you watch these 2 episodes together, it benefits.
Yeah. And I kind of wish that they had just honestly cut the first couple minutes and just started with Hera asking the Bad Batch for their help. Because that would have been like, yes, we're hitting the ground running. Like, we're inciting the action pretty much immediately.
Yeah, I felt like part of that was to set up some track for, what's the clone's name? Hauser? Right? Like, I think part of that was kind of set up track for him, for his arc throughout the course of this episode.
Yeah. I was watching this the second time, and at one point I'm like, pretty much all of this, I mean, apart from the backstory we get on Hera's story, which I'm sure a lot of people care about, most of this, especially the second episode, is all leading up to Hauser's stuff at the end, which we will get to.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a fun adventure, and I really enjoyed it, but like the meat of it is really in the last 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Which again,
agreed.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing we really, and going back to these first couple minutes, the only thing we really get in these first couple minutes while we're establishing is that Rampart orders Hauser to arrest the citizens that are loyal to Cham Syndulla, even though like there's really no charges and like they didn't really do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But going on, so Hera asked the Bad Batch to free her parents from the capital, and Hunter says, we're gonna try, but no guarantees. Um, and then we go into, again, we have the whole like town square thing in front of the important looking government building, and Rampart is leading another speech about, he's lying to the people about Cham Syndulla, he's lying about Senator Ta, and then Hunter takes out the probe droid. And it was kind of funny to me because the first time I was watching the scene, it kind of took me a little bit out of it because I'm seeing this original trilogy era probe droid next to these like prequel trilogy era clones. And like, I don't know, like something about like the juxtaposition of those things, like even though obviously it makes sense timeline wise, like something about that like kind of threw me off. Did you think about that?
I love it actually. Yeah, I love seeing the original trilogy technology kind of invading and taking over the prequel era, right? Like I think that it's a cool visual language transition to show that the prequel era is dying and we're going into like OG trilogy era. It was especially striking for me a few episodes back in the ship graveyard. When they're getting their chips out, because that is very much also because that planet is from the Jedi Fallen Order game that recently came out, and that very much feels like that as well. Like, oh, here is the assertion of the Empire.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And in that episode, it was almost like a visual metaphor because you got like the wreckage of this prequel era, ship in that era is no more, even though like the bones of it, the skeleton remains. So yeah, I didn't think about that way. I know I was going to do most of my questions at the end, but I do have one question about this point in the story with Rampart making that big speech and telling Hauser to arrest all the people and all that stuff. Is Rampart's character at this point and his thinking and his plan a little cartoon villainy, a little yes. Mustache twirling, like
100%. He's a very one-dimensional, like I'm just going to sneer and glower at the camera and be intimidating and he just seems to be like a complete like Empire, brainwashed acolyte who's just like revels in evil, which kind of makes him ultimately kind of forgettable for me.
Yeah,
there's nothing there that like makes him unique. Like when you meet like someone like Thrawn, you're like instantly like this guy has his own story. This guy, has his own POV. And it's interesting. But there's so many characters. For every Thrawn, there's a Admiral Rampart who's just a cookie cutter villain who like I could care less about.
Yeah, I mean, what makes a good villain? Some of the, and I won't say all the time, but a lot of the time, is that you may not agree with what they're doing, but you kind of see why they're doing it. And Admiral Rampart, I don't see why he's doing it. Because like Hauser brings up the point, like, sir, if you keep, arresting the people, there's going to be an uprising. And he like doesn't care. I'm like, where do you see this going, sir? Like, what is the end game for this? He doesn't care
about a peaceful transition. He just cares about subjugation. And if they resist, that allows him to kill people more. Like I see that part of him, but like that's just not interesting to me. Like I'm like, okay, now there are other characters that are like that, but the actor is so good at embodying the character, you kind of overlook it. Like Tarkin. Tarkin has no motive. Like I don't care. Like you like. Tarkin in the films is like a cookie cutter villain. Like he's just like, I'm evil and I'm gonna blow up a planet. Like, but he doesn't care. Like, you like I don't know anything about his motivations. I just know that he's evil. But it's the great Peter Cushing playing him to perfection. Yeah. So I don't really care because he's still entertaining me. He's still keeping me engaged. And this voice actor is doing a serviceable job, but you need to be great if you're going to do a character like that to make a mark, to make an impression for me.
Yeah, to me, what separates a Tarkin from a Rampart is that Tarkin is scary. Tarkin's really scary, and he's threatening, and if he's gonna do something, he's gonna follow through on it, and he will make you suffer for it. I
Yeah,
don't get that vibe from a Rampart, and
not
you're
at all.
right,
He's just
and
he's just
you're
like,
right. That's what
kill
sells
him,
it.
and it's just like, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and even when he gets pushback, he's like, I don't care. Like he's just gonna let it happen, honestly.
yeah.
But I do want to juxtapose that we kind of have this thing happening on the other side too, because when their cover is blown with the probe droid, Hunter says it's not worth the risk. These patrols are doubled, their cover is blown, and then Omega is the one who pushes back, saying she's trying to save her family. I would do the same for you, and that's again you see why he's doing what he's doing, even if you may not agree with it.
Yeah.
I love that line. All the credits in the world don't matter if we're dead. And I was like, yeah, I mean, dude's got a point. It may not be, the most brave and admirable thing, but he's not wrong here.
It also underscores, I think, something that I think Filoni is trying to get across to us is
Mm-hmm.
that these guys are not heroes.
Yeah.
He has no interest in being the swashbuckling hero. His core motivation is survival. He has no idea who he is. And that's not to say that he won't become a hero later. I
Sure.
definitely think you can see the building blocks of a hero there. But at this point, he is not a hero. And I don't even know that he realizes that he has started a hero's journey.
Ooh. No, I really like that. Yeah, in fact, later on in the episode, when they free Hera's family, Hera's uncle calls him a mercenary. And I'm like, yeah, that's what he is.
Mm-hmm.
And and like you said, he's starting some sort of journey. He just doesn't even know what that is yet, because his one motivation, really the whole Bad Batch's motivation, is to take care of each other. And whatever that involves, be it mercenary work or otherwise, that's what he's going to do.
Yeah. Until he reframes what his sense of community is from his brothers to perhaps, more people around him, widening that circle, I think he's going to continue to bump up against that. Whereas Omega is like, there are people that are hurting out here. She has a much easier time, I think, seeing that this is larger than just them. And I think Hunter is constantly struggling with that. And I don't know if the other characters are even thinking about it on that level at this point. Maybe Echo.
Maybe. But we don't see that as much.
Definitely not Wrecker. Wrecker's just like, let me eat food and punch things. Cool. And Tech is Tech. So
yeah. Wrecker is baby.
Yeah.
But moving on, I love this next scene. Okay, no, sorry, I gotta talk about one scene and then the next one. So Omega conspires with Hera to think of a plan because Hera knows the planet. Like Omega kind of plants that seed of like, we could do this on our own, with if we work together. But the scene that I really love is that scene between Chem and Hauser, when Hauser's like, I'm putting up this front because I want to protect Hera. I want to find her. But you got to tell me where she is. And Cham's like, no, you swore to protect Ryloth, and like, look where we are now. And that's really the catalyst that starts the tragedy of Hauser.
The spark that lights the flame of the rebellion.
No, the spark that lights the flame that will burn down the First Order, that will light the galaxy on fire. Like, oh my God. Anyway.
I'm glad I don't have to defend the sequel trilogy.
Oh my God.
Like, I think that would actually. I mean, it's on like when we do our debate club later this week. Like, I'm glad I don't have to defend that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm very glad I don't have to defend that.
You wanted to at first. He's like, yeah, we'll do all the Skywalker. We'll do the Skywalker saga. I'm like, are you sure about that? Are you sure about that?
I think I could still take it, but like there are some harder things I think that you could knock against those.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a skilled debater, which I think you are.
Thanks.
But yes, well, I think this also creates some larger questions about the autonomy of clones.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where the line is. I thought that they were just like mindless zombies at this point, but apparently they're
We
not.
will
And
get there.
I'm very
Oh my
confused as to
goodness.
what is happening with that
I know,
because
I want
now,
to talk about it so bad.
yeah, are like I like because clearly he is thinking about dissenting, and it doesn't even seem to be something that's heavily conflicted in him.
No,
So
not at
now,
all.
so now I'm
Not
super
anymore, at least.
confused. Right.
Not
So I'm
anymore, at
super
least.
confused now. I don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
like, did after Order 66 is done, are they just like cool? I don't think so because it seemed like Crosshair was, still zombified, and then same
Yes.
thing with Wrecker. So like, what is the difference with Hauser?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, and
Mhm.
I saw one theory, and I don't remember where I saw this, but they're like, oh, if there were no Jedi on that planet or present at the time of Order 66, does that mean like the chip just does not activate? Like, what's the deal here? But then I don't know. But anyhow, we will get there.
Yeah.
So my first issue with the episode was with Rampart and his cartoon villainry. But my second issue with this episode was the plan on the attack on the refinery. There's those 5 cannons, so they're gonna go and deactivate the cannons, and then Tech and Wrecker would move in, and after the cannons are down, while Echo and Hunter go and free Cham and Hera's mother and her uncle. Here's my issue. So that I get that we have set up this whole idea that Hera knows the planet, like let's have her make the plan. How did Hera know that the cannon control was right inside the main gate? She's been watching this refinery from like a ridge overlooking it with a pair of binoculars. So I can buy that she knows where the cannons are, and I can buy that she knows the patrol rotations and stuff. But like, I don't think she's ever been inside.
The Force.
Oh God, are we going that road again? Anyway, I know this.
The correct answer is that's not how the Force works.
That's not how the Force works, right? You are correct. That is the correct answer. And like, I know that's like a nitpicky thing, but it's like it's kind of a big part of like making their plan work.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a pretty big step. So I was like, I don't know about this, guys.
Yeah, I always just assume like, oh, something happened off camera where she figured out the thing. Like I
Right.
try not to get bogged down on those things too much.
I will. Okay, I can possibly justify it. Maybe there is a scene in the previous episode where Cham and Eleni, Hera's mother, are getting like the tour from Admiral Rampart, and later on is when they find out, I think, that Hera has been spying. And then remember when her mother like takes her aside, like, yeah, you've been spying. Now tell me everything. Like I could see them maybe like them comparing notes as to like how the thing works, but I don't know. It might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, like I said, like that's the she knows this because we need to get the plot moving. So
Totally.
Kind of like,
no, yeah, and that really is the real answer. This is just me trying to like create continuity.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like it'd be nice to like if they could have just like some throwaway line that like explains the thing.
Right.
Like I always like, you could have just tossed a little thing in, and then this would close this dangling, thread that you left out there.
Right. We've talked about this in previous episodes. It's like I don't require a lot of explanation to be able to accept something. I mean, this is sci-fi fantasy where like the Force is used as an explanation for a lot of things, and I'm able to accept that. Whereas something that's just like it feels like it was kind of overlooked or like shoved in, that I'm like, can we have just like a little bit of clarity here, please and thank you. But anyhow, right before this scene is over, we have this really cute line that I liked from Hunter, where he says to Hera, I guess we'll follow your lead. And I'm like, Hera's a rebel leader already. Our girl's growing up.
In the episode before this, when she was like spying and then like lays down and looks up at the sky, I was really waiting for her to burst into like a Disney Princess I Want song.
I know. It was a very like Moana moment.
Also,
right there,
like
for sure.
I think because they're owned by Disney, like is Hera Syndulla now a Disney princess?
I don't think she's royalty. I think they're just
she
like,
kind of is for Ryloth. Like, she's kind of a big deal.
yeah, but I don't think Cham's a freedom fighter, not like a governor.
Yeah, but he was like a political leader in there. So I think it's close enough. I think she is.
All right, fine, whatever.
I think I'm deciding that Harrison Dula is a Disney princess.
Okay, I love this headcanon
because reasons.
So the plan gets underway. Chopper fails to disable the cannons. So Omega suggests that Hera pilot a shuttle as, you know, the distraction that will allow Tech and Wrecker to come in. This part of the episode, I wrote down my notes. It gives me Harry Potter vibes, where like the two
very Harry Potter vibes.
Yeah, the two kids are like going in and like, you know, taking down the system, even though this is like way bigger than anything they should be probably meddling in.
And much more effective than Lucas's like Anakin Skywalker, like Harry Potter vibes, where like
now this is pod racing.
Well, I was thinking more like the scene where he like falls ass backwards into a starfighter and then just happens to blow everybody up by making mistakes inside of a ship. Like, it's like that's not skill, that's just dumb luck.
Yeah, you know? No, I just wanted to see your reaction.
Yeah, it's the Force.
The Force again.
Yeah, but the in this, like, it feels like the two girls have agency. They're deciding to take matters into their own hand, and they have the skill to figure out how to do the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are two notes about this scene that I want to touch on before we finish up this episode. One, before he boards the shuttle, Chopper electrocutes two clones, and I'm like, are we seeing the start of Chopper's massive body count? I love that so much. And then my very favorite thing from this scene is they're piloting the shuttle. Everything's kind of chaos. And Hera says into the comm, you know, we're getting the hang of this. And I had to write down the full quote because my favorite thing, Tech says, yes, your dangerous and uncontrolled maneuvering is as confusing to them as it is to us. And I'm like, Tech made a joke. I'm so proud of him.
I love Tech. Like, it's weird how much Tech has grown on me over the course of this season. I love Tech so much.
I know. Wrecker may be still my favorite, but Tech is definitely like most improved, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But anyhow, Echo and Hunter go in to the complex and free Hera's family. Mm-hmm. Crosshair, while on the way to the refinery, realizes it's a distraction. And Hauser, you know, overlooking like the hangar, sees Crosshair stay behind, and he goes and warns Cham that it's a trap. Mm-hmm. And so he tells them that it's a trap, and so he's helping them get away. Because on the other side of that big double door is a squad of clones headed by Crosshair that is waiting to probably take them out, honestly. So Cham and Hera's mother and everybody else, they get away, and the double doors open, and there's Hauser by himself. And I'm in my family room, just like literally sitting like this, because I'm like, what is going to happen? Oh my God. And then he gives this speech like, you know, what happened to us? You know, these are the people we swore to protect. And now the Empire comes in, and we've turned on them, like, you know, I can't allow this to happen. Who's with me? And they all throw down their weapons, with, of course, the exception of Crosshair looking over like that balcony.
Well, not all, right? I'd say
I thought it was all.
Maybe 50%. Because some of them then like arrest the others.
So it's all in that squad, but then reinforcements come in, and they're the one who take Hauser.
I have to look at the scene again, because I thought that it wasn't 100%. I thought some of them were like, yeah, and then like the other ones were like, well, you disarmed yourself, so you're under arrest.
Yeah.
You know, but, like, I don't know if you thought this rebellion.
Well, that's the thing, is that the reason why I call Hauser's story, at least up to this point, because we have no closure, Maui, and I'm freaking out. But yes, up to this point, I call Hauser's story a tragedy, because I feel like he knew full well what he was doing. Because, I mean, what's the end game here? If he did not think that if he thought somehow he was going to get out of this without being caught, like how? He's on an imperial occupied planet that's crawling with clones, and he just publicly like said that he's not going to go along with this. There is no happy ending here for him.
I think the end game was that he saw like he saw like a million different ways this could end. There's only one way that it could, and it doesn't make sense right now, but later on, then Doctor Strange is going to be there, and House is going to look at him.
That'd be so funny.
One way this can go.
But this is where all the questions. I remember messaging and be like, I feel like this episode opened as many doors as it closed. Mostly, I'm referring to the flippin' inhibitor chips.
Yeah, inhibitor chips.
I mean, we already talked about like why this happened. You know, whether or not it's just wear off after Order 66 is because they're not in any vicinity of any Jedi, or is this maybe an isolated incident? And if it's an isolated incident, then how and why?
I just looked at it. I'd say 50, maybe 60% of the clone troopers there threw down their riot shields.
Okay.
And then a few of them turned on them, and then reinforcements came
right
as well.
Okay.
So,
got it. I thought, yeah, never mind. But still,
but it doesn't make any sense because are there varying levels of resistance to these chips? Couldn't they just then crank up the chips to just make them fall back in line because their inhibitor chips have not been removed?
Right.
Yeah. And until they're supposed to be a liability. So
yeah. Or are they just degrading, galaxy wide? Were they really meant to inhibit somebody for this amount of time?
Right. Yeah. So I'm very confused on that. And this didn't feel like them saying like, oh, there's so much more to the chips. It just felt inconsistent. And I don't know if that's the case. Maybe this will be a thread that they will continue to pull on, but it didn't feel like they were saying that there was more to this.
I disagree. I feel like this is not the kind of door that you open just to not go into it.
100% agree. It just didn't feel like that to me. Like within this episode, when that happened or when Hauser's resisting, there's not moments like they foreshadow on Lampshade with Wrecker that there's something going on with his inhibitor chip.
Yeah. Totally.
There's none of that. There's zero of that. So I feel like we have kind of like a kind of a language of how they interact with these inhibitor chips, and this doesn't feel like it follows it at all within the narrative.
So that's funny because I reacted totally differently. It's like, oh, this is something that we will get closure on maybe in another episode, because again, I don't feel like this is something you can just toss in and be like, yep, and this is how it was, and that's it.
Yeah, surely they'll bring it up in the next episode, right?
Oh God. But moving on. No, because so it made me feel like less, confused and dissatisfied, and more like, oh, I can't wait to like hear what the deal is with these inhibitor chips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mike has a question. He says, I was very surprised that Hauser wasn't killed by Crosshair. You guys? Yeah.
Totally.
Right? They just arrest them, and like that's why I'm like, oh, are they just gonna crank up their inhibitor chips to like get them to fall back in line? Like,
yeah.
There's no good soldiers follow orders thing. There's none of the language visually or spoken that kind of hints to that says this is part of the continuing saga of the inhibitor chips. Like it just felt like they're like, but like, did they forget that these characters have inhibitor chips? It just felt really out of place to me.
I feel like there's no way they forgot, which is again what makes me think that they've got to go into this at some point.
Yeah.
Especially when the inhibitor chip was, such a storyline for like the first half of this show.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super weird. It's super weird. To me, it narratively sticks out. And
yeah, for sure. And I think it's meant to.
Yeah.
I hope. Please,
I
don't. So. Please don't let me down, Mr. Filoni.
Yeah, like I really hope I'm wrong about that, but it just really felt weird. And like even if that was the case in this particular episode, it's very easily like they can very easily flash back to it and say this was significant.
Yeah.
But like it just didn't feel like the way they kind of put a lampshade on things. It just seemed weird that they didn't hear. So
yeah, which makes me think that if / when we ever get back to Camino and, wrap up that part of the story, maybe we'll get some sort of answer there, because they're the ones who have all the answers.
Yeah.
So one final scene in this episode I want to talk about is at the end of the episode, Crosshair goes to visit Rampart and he requests permission to hunt them down, them being the Bad Batch. And my first inkling was, did you though? Did you just request permission to hunt them down? Or was it to join them? Is your inhibited ship like on the fritz too, sir? Because when yeah, that was my first instinct, I swear to God. Because he asked Rampart, for the permission. He says, granted. Rampart leaves, and there's this shot of Crosshair. He kind of has this conflicted look on his face a little bit. And again, that point I made last time we were talking about the first Ryloth episode, where this is where the medium of animation comes in clutch, because if there's a conflicted look on his face, it was put there on purpose.
Yeah.
Nothing animation is by accident. So I am very curious, because Crosshair seems like a tough nut to crack. If his inhibited ship was also on the fritz, I think he would be wise enough to keep that under wraps for the time being.
Yeah. I'm scrubbing to see.
Yeah. Go
also,
find it.
I have to say, like, I really wish in the last scene with Hera and Omega, like, what I really wanted to happen was not that they, saved her parents and she gets scuffed with her parents. I want her to continue to be separated from her parents, and she has to travel with the Bad Batch for a while.
Aww.
Because I just want, like, the adventures of Hera and Omega. Like, that's all I want.
know. I want this friendship. I live for it. It's so cute.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with them.
The final.
I'm looking at it now. Maybe that is confliction.
Yeah. I mean, as much as Crosshair can do it, because, I know we called Tech the sociopath for the first part, but really it's kind of Crosshair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
If he's giving any sort of emotion, it's for a good reason.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope so.
I do too. That'd be so sick.
I hope so.
He like comes in, he's like, "Hey, I'm back, y'all. And I'm sorry."
Yeah. Maybe that whole thing with Hauser was to show him, good soldiers don't always follow orders.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Maybe that could be it for sure.
Yeah.
But he still has an inhibitor chip that is dialed to 11, so I feel like it would be really hard for him to do that.
Right.
To resist it. So that would be very interesting to see how that would
for sure
play out,
I want two things. I want Crosshair to come back, and I want to know if Hauser's okay, because I need closure on that storyline. I saw a meme on Twitter where they took that scene in episode 3 where Vader is like, where's Padme? Is she all right? And they scrubbed up Padme's name and they put in Hauser, and I'm like, I don't know. Daddy Hauser, are you okay?
Yeah. I don't know, but I'd say it was a pretty good conclusion to that 2-part arc.
Yes, let's wrap up episode 12. Yeah, Maui, give me your rating.
I'll give it a solid 4.
That's pretty much where I land.
4. Yeah, I think it's a good episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does the thing well. There's nothing terrible about it. It raises more questions. It makes me think more than ever that I'm not going to get a lot of answers at the end of the season, which drives me insane. Like I think that the season arc should have like a decent amount of closure, and then you create new questions for the next season. I don't like questions that are started in a season and then a season completes its arc and those questions have not been answered. That really gets on my nerves, and it seems to be the MO of these Disney Plus shows, which is like with all the MCU shows, all 3 of them, I felt like there was not enough closure of the arcs. Of the
totally
arcs, with the
hard
exception
agree.
Of Falcon and the Winter Soldier probably has the most closure of its narrative arc, and unfortunately it's also the most uneven of them. This is a really good show, but like please, 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 Disney Plus, like, finish your stories. Like, don't do the thing that I hate about like Stephen Moffat, like Doctor Who, you know, where you end a season and you've had all these season-long questions and you just don't answer them. Like,
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate
Right.
that. So I'm really hoping that doesn't happen here.
Yeah, I mean, we still have, after episode 13, we still have 3 more episodes. So there is room for it, but the window is rapidly closing.
Yeah.
And when
I'm really hoping that the last episode is like double or triple sized, kind of like
the first one was. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Because when I think about all of the things that we've predicted and like the storylines that have been introduced that have not been really tied up, you got the Kaminoans, you got the 2 bounty hunters that after Omega, we got Wise Omega, this perfect clone of Jango Fett. Are we ever going to see Boba? There's all these things. Oh, the inhibitor chips. It's Crosshair come back. That's just 6 off the top of my head, and I'm sure there are more. And we have 3 episodes to maybe possibly tie a few of them up.
Yeah.
Which, again, 3 episodes is a lot of time. That's an hour and a half worth of content. But you got a lot of heavy lifting to do, buddy, in those 3 episodes. So yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about the possibility of the last episode or maybe 2 being a longer one, but man, I hope they are, because I really do want this to be maybe a cliffhanger at the very end to like lead into season 2, as much as that would bother me. But that might be a thing.
Start the end game next episode, right? Like but after the episode that we're about to review. Start the end game after that. So the last 3 episodes are all just about these, like, they are all story driven. No more filler in a 16 episode season, please. You don't have the time.
God, no.
To do that. And like, so maybe we should talk about the next episode.
Speaking of filler, let's talk about episode 13.
So coming out of this, right? Like, this is going to be, I think, a pretty important episode, one would assume. I'm super excited.
Oh my God, totally.
And, right. So so what's this one about?
Well, I'll tell you. This is about the Bad Batch kind of stumbling into Sid's parlor, and her office is occupied by this guy called Roland Durand and Ruby, apparently. Remember Ruby, which is the pet that they were trying to secure at the beginning of like episode 2 or 3? That was kind of a cute little callback. But anyway, Roland Durand, who is allegedly the son of a crime lord lady, I guess it's a woman, Issa Durand. And he claims Ord Mantell has his territory. He claims Sid's bar. He's just kind of taking what he wants. And while the Bad Batch leaves, and we're not gonna, we'll think about taking jobs from you, I guess. And they leave and they go back to the ship, and who's there but Sid and the 2 regulars from the bar inside their ship, which I thought was really funny. I don't know what their names are, so I just call them like the 2 buddies.
Oh, I call them Cliff and Norm. Oh,
yeah, that's right, because you're like, yeah, cheers. See, I don't have that. I don't have that reference.
Damn. So does this Roland Durand guy, is he like allied with the Kaminoans, or maybe like Rampart? Like, is there any like larger like implications to any of this?
Why no? I'll tell you. Well, maybe we'll get there, because I saw something. I was like, ooh, this could be a possibility. So Roland is working for the Pikes crime syndicate. But so he has a batch of spice. He is going to be delivering to the Pikes, and Sid's plan is, hey, if we nab the spice, that means Roland is on the hook with the Pikes, and he is screwed because the Pikes are ruthless. And so because she wants him to be ousted from her place. So there is an underground mining tunnel underneath the city of Ord Mantell and the planet that connects to Sid's parlor somehow. So their plan was to go through these tunnels into Sid's parlor, grab the spice, and then like carry the spice through the tunnels to get it out of there. And I was like, again, this is a little convenient. What
very
do you think?
convenient. It's what do I think?
Yeah.
I think what I've been hinting at this entire time is like, why are we here? Why are we
That's
why are we telling this story right now
yeah.
with 4 episodes left of this show? Why are we doing this weird detour for Sid's bar unless Sid is going to become a much larger character on this show? Like I don't understand how this connects to any of the storylines. And like I said, in a 16 episode season, I feel like you don't have time at this point to do an aside episode, a completely
Yeah.
standalone episode, which is what it feels like to me. I'm
Right.
very confused why this exists.
This feels like an episode that should have been done maybe 5 or 6 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Like, and when you and I were just starting out with this, we were talking about, okay, is this filler? We'll know if it has some character development or like deepens some relationships, then it's not really filler. This felt like true filler. I learned nothing about our main characters or anything like that, honestly.
I didn't even learn anything about Sid.
Didn't learn anything about Sid.
Which is where that could happen. Like I learned more about Sid in the episode where Omega is gambling,
the chess champion. Yeah.
Like I learned so much more about Sid in that episode than I did in this episode. Like there's 0 point to this episode.
Right. And in fact, it makes it even worse. So they mention Issa Durand 3 times in this episode. And I was like, oh, that must be some deep cut I don't know about. Let me go on Wikipedia and see like what the relationship is here. There's nothing. The only thing on Issa Durand or the Durand crime family or Roland Durand, they were created for this episode. Yep. I'm like, okay, so not only is this a totally filler episode, it doesn't connect to anything in the broader world either. Mm-hmm. So like what? Yeah, I have after my notes, I always have like numbered my questions, and question number 3 is why the heck are we here? That's exactly what I said. So I'm in complete agreement with you.
And we tried not to talk before these, but we couldn't help but talk a little bit.
We could not, yeah. Well, because I wanted like a vibe check. I was like, what did you think of this one? Yeah. Like, am I out of line? Like, it's just something I'm missing? Is this me? But you were like, yeah, this was a weaker one. I'm like, thank you. Okay, good. I feel so much better.
Yeah, and like I still like enjoyed the episode. Like, don't think that I hate this episode by any stretch of the imagination. No. It's still an enjoyable half hour. Wait, it's been half an hour. But like if you're here for story, if you're here for narrative arc, this ain't it. This is like a completely superfluous episode.
Yeah. And it's funny because I felt very much about this episode the same way I felt about the mid 4 episodes of season 7 of the Clone Wars. Because the first 4 episodes, okay, you got like the introduction of the Bad Batch, they rescue Echo. And of course, the final 4 episodes are a flippin' masterpiece. But the middle 4 were pointless and frankly bad. They were just bad. And I was like, why are, and at this point, whether it's episode 13 of Bad Batch or season 7 of Clone Wars, why is this the story that we're telling? Because to me, it feels aimless.
Yeah. So, you know how I like to script doctor these
Yes,
things.
You do.
So for me, what would have made this episode have a point within this season is to establish Sid's bar as home. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that's what this episode should have that's what I felt like thematically this episode should have done.
Yeah.
It was like, no, this is our home. These are our friends. It's kind of our family, right? This is also the moment where you solidify Cliff and Norm is, part of their crew, right? Like this is like their home base, right?
Yeah.
And like they care about each other. Like give me that in this episode. And now suddenly this actually has meaning. You're establishing that this is home. So then when everything goes to shit in the last 3 episodes and they are ripped away from that inevitably, it has more weight because how much they actually care about the place that they have carved out here.
Totally. And then it would deepen like their relationship with Sid as well. Mm-hmm. As like, maybe like an honorary part of the group.
Yeah. Right. Like, yeah. So yeah, Sid becomes mom, or or
Yeah, or
grandma, right?
yeah, or
Because
yeah.
Hunter's mom. Um, right. So this is
Hunter's
so like this
yeah,
is the
Hunter is
mom,
mom and Wrecker is baby.
right? And so then you create this thing with Sid, where Sid is like the disapproving mother, but obviously there's a lot of love, that right, like you create a family, a found family dynamic that I think carries more weight, of people that have been thrown together by these impossible circumstances,
Yeah.
and despite all of their disagreements, they really do care about each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, give me some sort of stakes. If you're not going to give me like action stakes, because this episode, even the action I thought was super lame, not super
Agreed.
lame, but like
No.
just like
I don't think
basic.
that's hyperbole. I
Yeah,
was like, because part of what the problem was visually was the whole swarm of the Earlings. It made it really hard to see what was going on,
yeah,
and also I just don't like bugs. So there's that. I
same.
just found that unsettling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think that's the thing that you do to really make this episode feel substantial, feel significant.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, we kind of took a hard left turn there while going through the story beats. Do you want to finish up the story beats, or should we talk more about?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Finish up the story beats, and then we can go back to kind of talking about the episode.
Sure. So they go into the mining tunnels that run through under the city to get into Sid's parlor, and Wrecker drops. And this whole time Sid's like, no motors, no blaster fire, no, we have to be extremely quiet. And she doesn't really say. She does say it's a stealth mission, but she doesn't really say why. And of course, later on we find out about the bugs. But I do want to point out that moment where Wrecker drops his flashlight into the caves. Like right off the bat, I'm like, oh, this is his. It was the fool of a took moment. Like beat for beat, it was exactly like it's so beat for beat that it almost can't be not. It almost can't not be an homage to that scene in Fellowship of the Ring. Like, there's no way that was by accident. I
will refuse to concede to that, simply because we have a debate coming up, and I don't want you trying to throw it back at me later.
No, I'm not gonna throw it back at you.
No, that's fine. Yes, no, absolutely. Even to the like the extra long like wait for the thing to finish making noise.
Yeah. And you hear it like rustling. You hear like the stirrings of like the unseen threat. Behind the scenes.
Yeah. Here's my question about that scene, and just in general for any of these stupid setups like this, because this is a common trope in television.
Go off.
And in film. Why not just say what it is?
Because it's much scarier. The unseen is so much scarier.
She has no reason to be coy about it. They're going in there trying to save her bar. Why wouldn't she just say, be quiet, because if you make noise, these things are going to come out and try and kill you?
She does, because she's like, oh, this place is a bit of an infestation problem. Rucker's like, we're not afraid of any bugs. But she does not go into the extent to which like this could be an issue.
Right. But like, that doesn't make sense, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Like,
No,
why would you be coy about that? Why would you be like, be quiet because this place has an infestation problem?
Well, she does say it.
Unless they are aware that they're fictional characters and the name of this episode is Infested, it makes no sense.
Yeah, roll credits.
Right.
Yeah. No, I hear that.
Because like, we know as the audience that what that means is if he makes noise, a bunch of bugs are going to show. Like, we are trained to know what that means. Yeah. But that character talking to this other character has no reason to frame it in that way.
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's like, I can see your writing here.
Yeah. The hand of the author for sure. But anyhow, back on the surface, Sid sends a signal to her. I'm gonna call him the pirate bar guy because he looks like one of Hondo's guys. But she sends a signal to pirate bar dude who lures Ruby and subsequently Roland outside by dropping a little trail of Mantell mix to lure Ruby outside and capture her, so Roland will not be present when the Bad Batch comes in and secures the spice. I thought that was kind of a cute little like throwback to the Mantell mix, like actually make it relevant to something. That was actually kind of cool.
I love that you just see people walking around eating Mantell mix now, like right? That's just like a thing. I love that whenever a thing is introduced into Star Wars, that then you start to see it everywhere, right?
Oh, for
It's
sure.
not like a just one-time thing. No, this is something that exists within this universe. This universe is lived in. So you don't just see something and it gets thrown away. It has a reason and a place to be here.
Yeah.
Also, MVP of this episode, Ruby.
Absolutely. So cute. I love Ruby.
When Ruby, there's a moment where Ruby just kind of like eats some Mantel mix and then just flops over on its side. It's like so stupidly cute and happy
so
and oblivious to everything that's going on, which is like perfect for this episode.
Question: Ruby, cutest Star Wars creature? Question mark?
That's Baby Yoda.
Oh fuck! I forgot Baby Yoda. Damn it.
It's not even close.
Second place?
I would slit Ruby's throat to get to Baby Yoda.
Oh my god! But see, here's the thing: I don't think of Baby Yoda as a creature. I think of Baby Yoda as a character. Ruby is a creature.
When Baby Yoda starts talking, then it can be classified as a character. Baby Yoda is just a really adorable thing that does like.
Baby Yoda has personality. I don't agree with that.
Yes, as does Ruby.
Ruby is food motivated. That's not a personality.
Baby Yoda is a babbling baby that can use the Force and choke people out. Like that's like Baby Yoda is just a function of being the most adorable thing to make you care about its relationship with Mando. But Baby Yoda is not a fully fleshed out character. So like I would say that like I would place Baby Yoda in the same category as like cute characters like that. Same by that same token, I don't consider Babu Frick a fleshed out character. Babu Frick is just there to be adorable. Yes, Grogu talks telepathically to like a character, Mike. So Mike said Grogu talks telepathically. Yes, absolutely, Grogu talks telepathically. But the point of the character is not to converse and stuff like that. That was just to show that like, oh, this is what Grogu has been saying this entire time. Haha, you didn't know because you don't speak the Force.
You
whatever.
don't speak the Force.
But like that's a throwaway thing. We don't like sit in Grogu's POV. We don't know that Grogu is talking all the time. Right. But like same thing with Babu Frick. You have no idea what Babu Frick is saying. Babu Frick's just being adorable so that when you
Babu Frick is saying he's saying I Babu Frick.
Right. So that when you kill Babu Frick, or when you seemingly kill Babu Frick, and then Babu Frick comes out and goes, "Hey," the entire audience can go, "Aw, that's adorable." Right. Cute. Like that's what those characters.
All right.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Rant
over. Yes. Let's move on. Because we got a bunch of story beats to get through in a short amount of time. So where was I? So the Bad Batch sneak in, they take the spice, but the two bar dudes cannot keep Ruby contained, and they run away. Roland.
This is accurate for Cliff and Norm, by the way.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure that's true. Roland recovers Ruby, but discovers the spice is gone and sees the hatch into the mines and tells the men to go and follow them. So there's a firefight between the like mine carts. It's Bad Batch versus Roland squad. And of course, because it's loud, the Hive wakes up and like literally carries away like some dudes. Like this not just like, oh, we're just doing this because it's creepy. Like, no, they're a legitimate threat. But they avoid the light. But the Bad Batch escapes and they seal with the spice and they don't. They escape having gotten rid of the spice, had Roland's men not recover them. They kind of like fell into the abyss and they escape and they seal the door behind. Unfortunately for the Bad Batch, the two buddies have now blabbed to Roland after getting caught by them. Then the Pikes show up and they're not pleased. And the Pikes know the spice is gone because of Sid, because the two buddies blabbed. And so they say that Omega is to stay with them until the spices return. Now, in order to break up all this plot that is going out right now, I do want to ask one question. The only way I see this episode having any sort of impact is if the reintroduction of the Pikes, at least into introduction to this show, but reintroduction to the audience, the introduction to the Pikes into the show means that maybe we'll get a Darth Maul sighting? ? I don't think it's going to happen, but it makes it a possibility.
I think that we have ended the arc of Darth Maul, so I don't think we ever need to see Darth Maul again.
Yeah. Darth Maul is dangerously close, if not there already, to being overused.
Yeah.
As much as I love him. I love him a lot.
And I love the way they end that arc. I love that like Obi-Wan is progressed so far past him that like you get to this build up and then like 1, 2, 3 moves, you're dead. Like amazing. I love that. So I really hope that they don't bring him.
But yeah, again, I don't think it's going to happen, but that's the only way I can see this episode being of any consequence whatsoever.
Yeah. I would also like to ask, did the people on this planet, how did no one know that those creatures' weakness is light? Like there's an open, it's an open top.
Right.
So there's half of the day, there's light shining right down there. Did people only go through there at night?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, so the bugs are like buried like in like the crevices of this mining facility. You know, they're not like up at the top where there's all the light. You know, you can tell that they enjoy the darkness. Now, maybe you don't know that they are so afraid of the light that they will like freak out and leave. But it's pretty obvious that they're not big fans.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Once again, I feel like I see the hand of the writer there.
Totally. No, I feel that. I feel that a lot in this episode, honestly.
Yeah.
So because they gotta actually get the spice back, Sid and Wrecker climb into the mines to retrieve the crates. There was one really cute Wrecker moment I really liked where they're looking for the spice at the bottom, and even though they're supposed to be quiet because again they don't want to wake the hive again, Wrecker goes, "Found one!" like really loud. I love him so much.
Wrecker is hilarious.
He's my favorite. We get a quick scene between Roland and Omega, saying that, he's just going to take what he wants. That's the Duran way from his mother. But again, it means nothing because his mother and the Duran crime family, whatever, were apparently created for this episode.
Also, like, I still don't understand why. Like, why did you do this? Like, why did any of this even start?
Right.
I don't get it. I don't know what happened.
I mean, Sid says because like her bar is like in the middle of all the action and stuff. But like, no, this city and indeed this planet were like created to be like the hub for bounty hunters. Like that's what the whole point that we have this place. So like, I don't buy the fact that like, oh, Sid's bar is like the one place that like could have had any influence. Like, no.
Right.
Again, hand of the writer.
Yeah.
So the Earlings apparently do wake up again until Tech drops like what amounts to a flash bomb into the mine and basically gets them out. So the spices return to the Pikes, but they still cut off Roland's horn. And I was like, whoa, that was my first moment of like, shit, like it's a children's show, quote unquote,
Well, yes, and that's why I was so worried because they were talking about how terrifying these Pikes are.
Right.
And like, so when they're like, no, we're still doing this thing, I'm still waiting for them to do something terrifying to this guy. And then they cut off his horn. And I was actually just saying this to Mike. Mike and I went to a show last night. And I was saying, like, for me, like, if the horn meant something culturally and like losing your horn means like you're like shunned from your society, then that's a pretty terrible thing to do to somebody.
Totally.
But like it didn't seem to hurt that much, and now he has like a cool like
thank you
thing. So like I'm like, okay, so what was the point of that?
Yeah, this whole scene was weird because you get even though like it didn't seem to hurt him that much, they're still cutting off a body part, and again, what amounts to a children's show, quote unquote. So that was like, oh, that's both like really harsh and also not harsh enough because again, you are lopping off a body part in a children's show, but he like recovers really quickly. And then the other weird thing in this scene was, Roland says like, oh, it's a small price to pay, and he leaves and it's all somber, and then all of a sudden Sid's like, all right, first round's on me, and I'm like, what is this tonal whiplash that we're experiencing here? Like, it just went from 0 to 100 in like 5 seconds.
And then back to 0.
And then back to 0, yeah.
So Mike said something very, I think, profound about this, is that like by the end of this episode, we're right back where we started. Like there's literally no point to this within a narrative. Nothing changes for them. Nothing changes within their dynamic. Right. This guy, nothing happens to Roland except for losing half a horn. You know, like there's like zero consequence to everything that happened in this.
Right.
You know, there's no change in the hierarchy of the Pikes. Nothing. Mike, even if Roland does show up in a future episode, this episode would not make sense for me. I will say that.
And I feel like fingers crossed if this season goes the way that I hope it does, maybe Roland is the kind of guy that will come back in like a season 2, and then maybe all this will make sense and he'll have some reason to have existed. I honestly hope that that's the case, because I would hate for this episode to be like the weird, episode 13 that like was there for no reason, because we've had people that come in. I know Clone Wars was laid out more of an arc, format, but we did have some villains come in for like an arc and then you don't see them again for another season. So like this is territory that has been tread before. There's precedent for this, but we'll see. I don't know. And I feel like you wouldn't name drop like an Issa Durand and like talk about it so much, this character that has not existed up to this point, and name drop her so much without maybe them coming back in a season 2, because like, why? I really hope that it's not, that it's just like was a name drop for no reason. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
I hope so.
All right. We got through it. What is your ranking?
I've generally given this show, like, I don't think I've given the show anything ever lower than like a 3.5.
Yeah, I don't think me either.
Stuff is set like around 4 or higher, because I think the show is pretty premium. I'm so low on this episode, even though it was enjoyable.
Yeah,
I will say that. Like,
even a mediocre Bad Batch episode is still pretty good.
Right. I would have no problem watching it again. Like if I'm like doing a rewatch of the series, I wouldn't skip it necessarily.
No.
And I will say that my rating is reflective of how middle of the road this is. If we have a 5-point scale, then middle of the road would be 2.5.
There you go. I would go a little bit harsher. I gave this one a 2.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. And you know me, I'm the one who normally like goes higher, but I feel like at this point in the story, when again, as we've discussed, there are so many threads to tie up. Before this episode dropped, we had 4 more episodes. Now we only have 3.
Yep.
And I'm like, I feel like there's just no excuse. And again, it was enjoyable. I wouldn't skip it either. There's still good stuff about it, but like, man, it's because there was so much going into it and so many things we have yet to tie up and have closure on. It is amplified. Had this episode been 5 episodes ago, I probably would have rated it higher. But because we're at this point in the story where I want more beefy things to go down, I'm like, I can't give it higher than that, I don't think.
Yep. It either needed to happen earlier, or like I said, it needed some slight tweaks to make it more thematically of consequence to the characters. I needed something to change. I needed some sort of evolution of character dynamics, and it really does nothing for no one. So right. I just can't abide that. Totally.
All right. Is there anything that we did not touch on that you want to throw out there?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
I am Ella on everydaywithella.com. It's a book that I wrote. It's delightful. There it is.
Woo!
That's my thing. That's what we forgot.
Okay, sorry. which dear audience is why we took our little like 1 week break, because you had the party coming up to
I had
release
a book
the book
launch, and it broke me. It broke me. I needed a little bit of a break. Also going through IVF right now. My partner and I are going through IVF. There's a lot of things happening at once, but we are going to try and stay on top of these episodes as we barrel toward the ending. There's another show I want to probably do a season review of, if I can find a couple other people to watch it. It's also on Disney Plus, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. It's called The Mysterious Benedict Society.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
And it is delightful, and I need to know how it ends. That show has not had a single episode that I have disliked. A single episode. Every episode feels like it has purpose. It drives the story forward, and I am obsessed with it.
Nice. Yeah. Alrighty then. I think we can put a bow on this one.
There we go.
Thank you all for watching.
Have fun storming the castle.
Bye.